Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Shooting Defence on FNX, brought to you by My Sportswear and Save Association. I'm your host, Stel, as ever, and joining me is ESPN commentator Mark Donaldson. Mark, welcome to Shooting Defence, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, Stel. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Can't complain. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me.
I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Mark, let's talk about the Premier League games, and since it's the top of the show, let's begin at the top of the league and Man City, who made it 15 wins on the bounce after battering Swansea. Was it 4? Was it 3? I lost count, to be honest. I mean, we keep saying there's a long way to go, and other clubs have blown leads with less games remaining, but I'm actually struggling to see who will take points of City. Do you have any idea?
There might be someone that takes points of them, but it's going to be a while, I would suggest, before they come close to the pack. I mean, they're ruthless right now. I think to illustrate how impressive they are, you just need to look at their substitutes bench for the game at Swansea. And they've got Sane, who didn't come on, Walker, who didn't come on, Gabriel Jesus, who didn't come on. They even give an opportunity for Alexander Zinchenko, the Ukrainian, to get a game because they didn't need to bring on Jesus, Sane, or Walker. Their squad depth's frightening. Middle to front is as good as anybody. And for me, the league's gone. It's done. I mean, what you've got is a combination of City being so good and the other teams taking points of each other. That's a potent combo as far as City are concerned. And 11 points right now, the gap to them and Manchester United. I think the only question is, will it be more or less than 11 points that they win the league by at the end of the season?
No, I totally agree with you, mate. I mean, even before the Manchester derby, I thought, even if United get a win, it still wouldn't make a difference because City are just so explosive. And I said it on Tuesday's show. If City don't batter teams, they scrape wins, and if they don't scrape wins, they get a couple of lucky goals that you're going to get when you're at the top of the league. And I just can't see their luck changing for the worst or for the better for the rest of the Premier League, to be honest.
No, whether it's luck or whatever it is, I mean, they've got the best squad, they've got the best players, but they don't know when they're beaten. They don't know when to just stop playing, because I was just looking at some of their games of late. Home to West Ham, David Silva, winner, 83 minutes. Home to Southampton, Raheem Sterling, winner, 90th minute. At Huddersfield, didn't play well, goal down at half-time. Raheem Sterling, winner, 84th minute. And you can go on.
Yeah.
I mean, they scored a lot of late goals. And I think what happened last year was Pep Guardiola came in, and I'm not sure he knew what to expect, but he has done his work since then. He's got them as fit as ever. That's why they, not just mental strength, but physical fitness as well. They've been so good, and he doesn't like failure. I mean, we've all seen his previous teams wherever he's been, and he's been a success. He was a success at Barcelona. He was a success at Bayern, and it's taken him maybe 12 months because it wasn't the best first season that he would have liked, but the sign of a good manager is learning from things that haven't gone right, putting them right, and my goodness, what a season they're having so far.
That's right. And you took the words right out of my mouth, because what I was about to say is that he learned from his mistakes, and he's not a stubborn guy. He's not the kind of person to stick to his, oh, I'm going to play it this way and that's how it's going to be. I mean, if you look at the goalkeeping situation, he brought in Claudio Bravo. That obviously was a bit of a disaster. So he thought, you know what, I need to change that. And then comes Ederson, and he's been fantastic. He's seen the fullbacks. That position was very, very weak with Kolarov, obviously with aging legs, and Sanya was just, Sanya was on his last legs as well, to be fair. So he strengthened those three positions: the left back, the right back, and the goalkeeper. And he just added in Bernardo Silva just for that extra bit of backup. And they've been outstanding. They've been absolutely fantastic.
And the weird thing is, the big fullback, the left back that he bought, Benjamin Mendy, hasn't even played.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the injury, or he hasn't played as much as he would have liked. And you've had Fabian Delph playing there. You've had sometimes Danilo playing there. You've had other guys playing there as well. So it's not his first choice at left fullback. But I mean, it doesn't really matter, because most of the ball that they have is up the other end of the field. And what you find, it's not so much a left back. It's a case of the left back's a left midfielder, or he's a left wing back, or he's a left winger, or he comes inside. They know their roles, and I mean, it's just been a pretty much a perfect season so far for Manchester City. And we were speaking about Guardiola last season. What did they get? 15 points, I think they finished behind Chelsea.
Yeah.
8 points, remember, behind Spurs as well. So there was no way that Guardiola, who's been a success in management wherever he's gone, was going to come to England and leave England whenever he does, not having won the Premier League. He was adamant that this is what he wanted. These are the players that he wanted as well. He identified the strength and depth. Now, I'm a fantasy football manager, and it's annoying for me because it's like playing Guardiola lottery. Who's he going to start this week? But what he does have is a constant. He has a constant in midfield with Kevin De Bruyne and his little midfield general, David Silva. David Silva's the orchestra conductor, and Kevin De Bruyne is the guy who just plays the most amazing tunes, and he can rely on those two. And whether it's Aguero in attack or whether it's Gabriel Jesus, he knows he's getting support from the likes of Raheem Sterling, Leroy Sané, whoever he decides to pick. He's just got it right, and it's taken him 12 months, but he's got it right now.
That's right. And the other thing that Man City have got right, Mark, is their social media. Now, I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier today, and we're drawing the comparisons between Manchester United and Liverpool in the early 90s, whereby Manchester United became a PLC. They've then focused their PR and the more marketing in the Far East, and they did the tour of South Africa, meeting Mandela and all that. And that's where Liverpool fell behind from a financial perspective. But then when you look at Manchester City now, they've overtaken Manchester United from a marketing and a PR perspective, because their social media is outstanding, and Manchester United are lagging behind. So it's kind of like a role reversal now in that sense, but obviously adding City into the equation. I mean, I know in the States social media is massive. What's the perception of Man City out there? Because obviously Man United back in the day, I mean, I don't know what it is like now, but whenever people saw Manchester, they associated it with Manchester United. But are Manchester City overtaking United now in the States, would you say?
Not yet, I don't think so, because you've got a lot of Manchester United fans globally. I mean, they've been a successful team for many, many years. So with that comes a fan base, and then with that fan base comes potentially the offspring of that fan base, either supporting who mum or dad supports, or deciding, you know what, you've seen it a lot with youngsters. They support the team that's most successful. So over here, obviously, we're fortunate. Over here, we get every single game live on television. NBC do a wonderful job, and what you get with that is you probably get a lot of success of Manchester City this season, and that will translate to maybe some youngsters over here watching it for the first time and going, I want to be a Man City fan. But they're still, it's something that they probably will overtake United if they continue having success. But right now, I would say that Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man United are the kind of big supported teams over here, because they've had a fan base for many years, and Chelsea's and Spurs are kind of coming up as well. So City have still got a fair bit of ground to cover there, but if they keep being successful, they will eventually.
Absolutely. And up next for City, actually, Spurs, who you mentioned earlier, they beat a stubborn Brighton 2-0. Now, people will point to the Wembley factor being some kind of reason for Tottenham's questionable season, Mark, but they obliterated Liverpool and Real Madrid at Wembley. So I kind of say that myth is well and truly dispelled. What do you think?
It is, but it's not. You look at their form from last season. And as far as their home form is concerned, Spurs, 17 out of 19 they won. They drew the other 2. They did not lose one game at home. Now, ask West Ham fans, ask Arsenal fans, any fans of teams that have moved stadiums, whether it's permanently or whether it's something that's only happened for a season or 2. Now you look at Spurs' home form this season, they've only won 5 of 9, and they've lost 1, and they've drawn 3. Now, goal scoring was not an issue at home for Spurs last season. They're averaging less than 2 goals a game at home this year. And away from home, it's a similar record. It's not as good. I just think, I read an article on this, and it's not so much Harry Kane struggles about it, but just the whole adjusting to things. And the Wembley pitch is bigger. They didn't do that well in the Champions League on it last year. They've been a lot better this year. But to go from the season they had last year, if it was like for like, and they were still at White Hart Lane, then maybe they would be the main challengers. Not in 4th right now to Manchester City. Maybe they might be up there. But when you think about it, so the 3 draws, there's 6 points, and a loss. There's 9 points they've lost at home this season, when they lost only 4 points in the whole of last season. There has to be something that's the reason for that, and whether it's Wembley or whatever it is, it's not home comforts. That's the bottom line. So they're going to have to get used to it. It's not a bad record at Wembley, but they've drawn too many games against teams they should be beating at home, and that's been the issue.
I agree, and it's been late goals as well that have it's cost them points. There was the Burnley game. There was obviously the Chelsea game at the beginning of the season, and the lack of goals as well. Swansea, they held them 0-0. So
and that's the thing, Stel, because look at the 3 games they've drawn. Okay, the 3 games that, if it's last season, they're beating West Brom by a couple of goals.
Yep.
They're beating Swansea by a couple of goals. They're beating Burnley by a couple of goals at home, but they drew them. So that's the issue. Now, okay, the Burnley one you can maybe forget a little bit about because it was near the start of the season. But the West Brom game, I mean, there was no excuse to draw that game. I remember watching it over here. They went a goal down early on, and they just, the tempo of the play at home especially, to me, just seems to have dropped a little bit from White Hart Lane. And a lot of that's maybe to do with the intensity of the crowd. I mean, you're getting, 40-odd thousand last season, right on top of the players, making a hell of a noise. It's inspirational, and it spurs you on. And sometimes you've got to generate your own atmosphere at Wembley. So it's not been ideal, and the quicker they're back, and they've got to hope that their new stadium with the fans a bit closer to the pitch, they can get back to the home form that they had last year.
That's right. And to be honest, I don't want to be too critical on Spurs because they've been fantastic with the past couple of seasons. But if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be slightly wary about this new stadium. Obviously, there's going to be the buzz around the ground, and lots of fans are going to be turning up. They're going to be. I think a lot of the fans will have the season tickets together like what they used to be. That's from what I heard. But the thing is, as you mentioned, when Arsenal went to the new ground, I mean, they went to the new stadium to compete. I haven't seen an improvement. I think they've regressed, to be fair. West Ham, we've seen so far the couple of years that they've been there, they've struggled. And Spurs moving back to Wembley, obviously, White Hart Lane. I've seen White Hart Lane. It's only around the corner, and it dwarfs every building in North London, to be fair, as you'd expect. But I'm just I'd be a bit wary if I was Spurs fans, because if you look at Spurs away from home against the likes of Man United, Liverpool, big grounds, it's not condensed like White Hart Lane is. Can they play in an open stadium like that? I've seen at Wembley they've struggled a little bit. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a bit, pessimistic or skeptical.
Yeah, we don't know, and that's the answer. We don't know until Spurs go back to White Hart Lane, even though it's going to be a kind of new White Hart Lane. But I would say if there is a kind of blessing in disguise for Spurs this year, even if they were at White Hart Lane, even if they were at their old stadium, I don't think anyone's catching Manchester City this year. So if it's the type of season whereby, okay, we've had to play at Wembley if you're a Spurs fan, if City are probably going to win the league by double digits. So if you're going to have one season to pick to play away from your own ground, and it's a season where someone's going to run away with the title, you probably pick this season. So look, I'm a Hearts fan up in Scotland. I've got a fetish for misery. I know what misery is all about, and I know what the kind of bad results, whatever. Spurs fans have got it good. They have got it good from last season. They've got some wonderful players. I love the fact that their team is all pretty much, well, their key players, the whole "he's one of our own" chant. I mean, Harry Kane, funnily enough, Harry Kane's debut was against my team, Hearts.
That's right.
0-0 draw, and he missed a penalty. And you're thinking, who's this kid? Because what I kind of omit to mention initially was that Spurs had won the first leg in the Europa League 5-0 up at Tynecastle in Edinburgh, with Gareth Bale and the likes absolutely running riot. So they played the kids in the return leg, and Harry made his debut in that game after a number of kind of clubs he'd been out at on loan. And he looked decent. I mean, you could tell there was something there, but he did miss a penalty. He's done all right since that day, I would suggest, in 2011.
Do you know, I'm glad you mentioned Harry Kane and Spurs youngsters, because that brings me on to my next question. Lovely little segue there. Do they need to win a trophy to stay at the club? And by that, I mean, how long can the Spurs players go at the club without winning a trophy? I mean, we've heard about Dele Alli possibly linked to Barcelona and Real Madrid. And the same with Harry Kane. Do they need to win a trophy to say, right, this is the club for us? Because we've seen bigger players leave bigger clubs, after a couple of seasons after not winning things.
I don't know if winning a trophy is the be-all and end-all for professional footballers nowadays. Winning the Premier League is certainly the pinnacle of what they can achieve domestically. But I think as long as the team that they're playing for are playing in the Champions League, that will put them, A, on a pedestal, and B, it'll give them the platform to showcase their ability to the widest of audiences. And that will then potentially give them their next move, if they're at Spurs, to an even better club on the continent, for example. I was quite surprised at the whole Nemanja Matic move in the summer from Chelsea to Man United, because I don't get one team strengthening one of their rivals. So I think if Spurs sell their key players, I think they sell them overseas. I don't see why you would strengthen. Why would Alexis Sanchez go to Manchester City if it was at Arsenal? Well, because he can. That's the bottom line. He can, because Arsenal have screwed up with regards to the contract talks and everything like that, and they won't have a choice. Yeah. But if Spurs have got a choice about who moves on, players in contract, they're not going to sell them to a rival. So I think as long as Spurs are playing in the Champions League, their players are playing on the platform that they want, then it'll be fine. And what you're going to get from next season, obviously, with the new sections of the Champions League and the new way it's done, where the top clubs have guaranteed 4 teams, you're not going to have. Not so much in England it affects, but it affects other countries, because you guys have got 5 this year. But if you know you're playing for one of the top clubs in England, I think playing in the Champions League is just as important every year as potentially winning a trophy. So if Spurs players know that they're not going to get a move to, if they're under contract, they're not going to get a move to a Manchester City or a Man United or a Chelsea or a Liverpool, because their club's not going to sell them, then I think this is probably the best they're going to get in this country, unless they want to let their contract go down. Otherwise, it would be onwards and upwards overseas.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you mentioned clubs in the Champions League, Liverpool being one of them. And I said it the other day to a friend of mine, the only reason why Jurgen Klopp, I think, is still in a job is because Liverpool are in the Champions League. And, it's 2 draws on the bounce for them against sides who you think on paper that they turn over. But for me, it just seems that Liverpool are putting all their eggs in one basket again. And by that, I mean, last season they relied heavily on Mane. Now it's Salah.
I remember watching Salah. I commentated on him a number of times when he was at Roma, and I knew he had a chance. I'm not saying no one knows, because he's in a different kind of league and whatever, but I knew he had a chance, because the boy's a star, an absolute star. And it's funny how him and De Bruyne were potentials for Chelsea, and they never got the opportunity, whether it was the age or whatever, and they moved on to bigger and better things. And he is a star, but they've got to sort this out in that their home form. You don't concede many, which is different from last season when they were very porous at the back. You can't draw 0-0 against West Brom, who are scraping for their lives, when you've got Coutinho, Firmino, Salah, and Mane playing. That just isn't doable. It isn't possible. So I think what you have with a lot of these teams, certainly the Liverpool fans, not all of them, and certainly probably a minority, there's still an element of a kind of, this is what we expect from our club. Now, if you're a Liverpool fan of a certain age, a certain vintage, you'll have seen my colleague Stevie Nicol, you'll have seen his teams win European Cups and league titles, Kenny Dalglish, Souness, Hansen. You've got to separate then and now. Liverpool are no longer the top dogs. And it's like Man United the last couple of seasons, since Fergie left. I mean, Man United fans have got this, well, all we've seen in our lifetimes is Man United winning trophies, and the expectation, the bar is raised to an extent that they expect that to continue. And then it's when it doesn't happen. That's when what happens next comes in. Your Chelsea's, they had a poor season after they won the league. And look what happened when Leicester won it. I mean, Chelsea should have won that league. They didn't, for whatever reason. So the expectation level is just as interesting for me among the supporters. And it just takes me back, Stel, to Charlton. Remember them when their fans they'd had enough of Kirbishley? Yeah. Look at them now. Yeah. It's kind of, be careful what you wish for sometimes, and just accept that there might be 2 or 3 years of kind of, not mediocrity, but if it's City run away with it this year, fine, you just got to accept that they're better than you. But you've got to do what Guardiola did last summer, or the summer just gone. Okay, that didn't work for us. How am I going to improve? If you've got confidence in your coach to do that, that's fine. For Klopp, I like him. I like his style of football, but he's got to start coming up with results, because right now, 0-0 at home to West Brom is unacceptable.
I agree. And I was talking to Tony Evans, who you probably know, being another ESPN member of staff, so to speak. He was telling us a few weeks ago that, Jurgen Klopp doesn't really focus too much on the defensive side of things. Do you think that's, I don't know, I can't blame Klopp solely for Liverpool's form, because when you've got someone like Dejan Lovren there, that's, I don't know, loose cannon, so to speak, you're not going to get instant success or much success. Do you think, like me, Lovren could actually cost Klopp his job?
I don't know, but I want to give you a stat. I'm going to tell you names of 3 players: Scott Arfield, Willian, and Wayne Rooney. Those three players, Rooney, Willian, and Scott Arfield, they're the only players that have scored against Liverpool at Anfield in the league this season.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, exactly. And when you think about that, you're like, whoa, wait a minute here. Now, United have gone there, couldn't score. Palace, Middlesbrough was last season, but Palace, Arsenal, they went there, couldn't score. Huddersfield, Southampton, West Brom. So when we're talking about Liverpool, I think what you're talking about is not so much defensively this season. And I get the whole Lovren issue, and maybe that's a blind spot that he should have addressed in the summer. But I'm just thinking, playing devil's advocate here. If I'm him, I'm saying we've conceded 3 goals at home in the Premier League this season. So for me, you've got to look at, okay, well, if that's not the issue, what is the issue? I think the issue is chance conversion. Because, I mean, it's in the game that they played against West Brom, they had most of the ball. Against Huddersfield and Southampton, they were excellent. They converted a decent number of chances to goals. Against Man United, again, loads of chances, didn't score. Arsenal. So it's feast or famine. They had a few chances against Arsenal and destroyed them 4-0 because they were clinical in front of goal. They only got the one against Palace. So chance conversion for me, with what they are able to create, with the players that they have who are creative, that front four is frightening, absolutely frightening. They get a lot of the ball, but they don't score enough goals for the chances they have. That for me is more of a concern, certainly at Anfield, than defensively, because if there's only 3 players that have scored against them this season, they're not doing too bad defensively at home.
That's right, and I think it's a similar problem United had last season, where they were creating chances, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. There was the infamous Burnley game where there was 37 shots, and they couldn't beat Tom Heaton. And let's be 100% honest, as you said, Liverpool have got one of the best attacks in the Premier League, and it'll be criminal for them not to finish in the top 4. But I think they desperately need another central defender. I know a lot is pinned on Joe Gomez to be the next, central defender, the next Carragher, so to speak. And I think the goalkeeping situation needs to be addressed as well, to be fair. I know Mignolet has done all he can, and he does get a lot of stick, because let's be honest, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it often leads to a goal. But he's made the mistakes too often, and I think Karius is a bit I think the less said about him the better, to be fair.
No, the bottom line is, if Liverpool want to be considered serious title contenders, which right now they're not, goalkeeper's not good enough. Their centre-backs aren't good enough. If he thinks that Joe Gomez is the answer as a centre-back, why has he not played him there that much this season? Because if he wants to play him in there, he's got Trent Alexander-Arnold or someone else to come in. And I get the whole, he had Milner at left-back last season, but obviously that's not for him this season. He'd rather, and I love Andrew Robertson. I think he's great going forward, and he's not a bad defender as well. And I was surprised when Moreno started the season ahead of him. But if you're looking at Klopp's decisions this season, Moreno, Karius, Lovren, and Clavan, because Matip's been hurt, that's not going to win you the Premier League. That's an issue. Now it's the same as what, a couple of years ago or last year, when everybody knew that Arsenal had to sign a striker before they got Lacazette, whether it was Mr. Wenger being stubborn or what it was. Everyone seems to know about the issues that some teams have got, whether it's Arsenal with a striker before Lacazette, or whether it's Liverpool with a centre-half. Is it stubbornness? Is it a blind spot? Only the one person can answer that. For Arsenal, it'll be Arsene Wenger. For Liverpool, it'll be Jurgen Klopp.
That's right. And again, you mentioned Arsenal. They drew against West Ham, which keeps them in seventh place. Sorry, that's 8 points from a possible 15, mate. Now, I know Wenger went with a 4-2-3-1, selecting Giroud over Lacazette, and Maitland-Niles slotted in at left back ahead of Kolasinac. And last season's forgotten man Wilshere got a start. The thing is, it just seems to me the boss kind of underestimated West Ham a little. What do you think?
Well, he had a warning from the previous game against Chelsea, and what West Ham did in that game was they put Mark Noble on Cesc Fabregas, and that didn't allow Chelsea to be creative. And you saw the intensity that West Ham played against Chelsea. You saw how in their face they were as well. So to say he underestimated them, if he did, I'd be surprised. But I'm not sure the players that he picked. I'm not saying they were hungry enough, but you've got to battle it. I mean, Moyes, Billy McKinley, Stuart Pearce. West Ham have got back-to-back clean sheets now, and there's a reason behind that as well. And by the way, they were unlucky at Manchester City as well, because they had chances. So the clues were there. So to go and to bench Lacazette, Kolasinac again, to have Maitland-Niles in there, you went with the back four, and Nacho Monreal as a centre-back. I mean, what's going on here? At which stage, I get preserving players. I get that. But, as I said, I mentioned earlier, Stevie Nicol, one of my colleagues, when he played for Liverpool, I was doing a bit of homework on this because it was a feature I was doing for ESPN FC. 1988-89 and 1989-90. Liverpool played 102 competitive games. Stevie played them all. And it was a smaller squad, and it wasn't as much rotation. But, I mean, if you're playing midweek and you're playing at the weekend, is that too much to ask? Now there seems to be this kind of thing that's on vogue. Oh, we need to give him a rest. We need to rotate him. I've actually done a piece today. I do a weekly fantasy piece for ESPN FC, and we're talking about the rotation. Now, what Stevie was saying at Liverpool back in the day was we didn't want to lose our place because we knew if we lost it, the team was doing well. We probably wouldn't get it back again. So there was that fear factor. Now, I mean, if you're Ben Davies at Spurs, or you're Danny Rose, and on the other side, if you're Kieran Trippier, or if you're Serge Aurier, you're playing one, you're sitting. You're playing one, you're sitting. Players need to play regularly to gain that kind of form, to gain that consistency, to gain that momentum. If you're playing one, sitting one, that's hard to do. Now, the players aren't complaining, they're getting paid a fortune, and it's different from when Stevie played, because he knew if he didn't play, he wouldn't be in the team. When you're not in the team, you don't get the win bonus. That was a lot of money back then. So there's a lot of things to look into this. Were Arsenal players hungry enough? Did Wenger pick the right team? Giroud starting ahead of Lacazette, Iwobi starting as well. It's difficult to gauge, but the bottom line is Arsenal are the most frustrating team in the Premier League for their supporters, because the talent and the ability they have does not equal the results on the pitch.
No, absolutely. And then there's a lot of Arsenal fans that feel that, you know, maybe it's time for Wenger to. I mean, we've heard this for the past couple of seasons, and now there's the whole issue with Özil and Sanchez and the contracts, and apparently Özil's being offered 300 grand a week, which is a bit confusing because if you take into consideration how much he cost Arsenal, and then how much he'll be on, say, over 3 or 4 years, over 300 grand, that's over 100 million pound. Then you had that 92 million bid for Lamar, which apparently didn't happen. So I think Arsenal fans deserve answers, but they're just not getting them.
Is he worth that, Özil? Because he scored two goals this season. Okay, on his game, unplayable, magnificent to watch. Done well for Germany, but for Arsenal, is he worth that? I mean, if you're keeping one out of the two, you've got to keep Alexis Sanchez. But you can tell with players. You can just tell with their stats. You don't even need to look at them. Sanchez and Özil are in the final years of their contracts, or they're coming towards the end of their contracts. And look at the returns that we've had from Özil. 2 goals this season, 4 goals from Alexis Sanchez. And that's nothing like he was producing last time out. I mean, there's obviously something on his mind, clearly, because what's next for him? I mean, the way it's been handled at Arsenal, and we spoke earlier about Kerbishley and Charlton, and kind of careful what you wish for. The problem that you've got at Arsenal, for me, is Wenger's all-empowering. I mean, he's the one that will decide when he goes. He's the one that makes all the decisions at that football club, which is fine because, I mean, they're in a strong position. The bottom line now, this is the difference between now and when Stevie and these guys played back in the day. Their football club's second, their cash cows first. I mean, why do you think so many Premier League clubs have got owners from over here in the United States? That's what it's all about. It's about the bottom line. Arsene Wenger makes the Arsenal board and their main shareholders absolute fortunes. Now, you could accuse it of maybe being penny pinching, biscuit tin mentality, or whatever. The fans have to realise that. They might not like it, but they have to realise that first of all, why do you think the Premier League doesn't have a sponsor? Because they decided they didn't need one. They didn't need the extra cash. They're already rolling in it. Football now is a huge financial business. And unfortunately for Arsenal, as long as Arsene Wenger keeps making a fortune for their main shareholder, he's going nowhere, irrespective of the results on the field. As long as they don't slip out of the kind of top 10 and they're challenging for a Champions League or a European spot, the only thing that's going to change that is bums on seats. And the Arsenal fans are going to have to stop going or do something, because until they do that, it's just going to be more of the same.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And let's be fair, it's not going to happen, is it? There's so many fans on a waiting list to get season tickets and whatnot. Those days are gone where fans can just protest and the club will take notice. It doesn't happen anymore.
It is now. And if I'm an Arsenal fan, then I've got a choice. I want to go and see my team. Of course I do. I'm not going to not go Because if I don't go, you're going to have to get a kind of uprising, a movement of 40, 50,000 fans saying, you know what, I'm not going to go. That ain't happening. It's the only thing that's going to stop. And you see City coming in. Sometimes spending to chase those that are spending is dangerous. Look what happened to Rangers and Scottish football. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. But financially, right now, Arsenal are up there with not the big spenders, but they're more than capable. But this is the whole thing. Do you want to spend money or do you want to make money? And that's the dilemma that Arsenal have got under Wenger.
That's right. That's right. Well, a couple more quick things before I let you go, Mark. The bottom of the table is getting more and more interesting by the week. Now, 4 points separate 18th place Crystal Palace and 11th place Southampton. Now, Huddersfield, Brighton, Bournemouth, Stoke, Newcastle, and West Brom are actually sandwiched in between them. Now, with January only a couple of weeks away, this actually could be one of the most frenetic transfer windows in Premier League history. Now, everyone down at the bottom has effectively 1 month to roll the dice.
Funnily enough, Shaka Hislop and I did a piece on the ESPN FC today, and it's up on the website about the relegation zone and who's going down. And from 11 to 20, the bottom half of the table is separated by 6 points, as you said. So, as we were talking about, give me the teams down there right now who know what it takes to fight. And West Ham, it's no surprise that they played well at City, and since the new manager came in, and they've conceded none in their last 2, and they got a big win as well. That's not a surprise. They know how to fight. My concern down there is the teams that are not quite in the bottom 3 yet, but they're going to probably end up there, and they haven't had that experience of battling and fighting. The form table for me over the last 6 games makes interesting reading, because Newcastle are bottom with just 1 point from 6. Yeah. Brighton, 2 points from 6. Huddersfield, 3 points from 6, and a goal difference of -12. The bottom 3 in the form table over the last 6 games have got a cumulative goal difference of -31. That tells you a lot, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. So who would you pick to go down? Because I think Stoke will be safe. You know, Mark Hughes has got them. Stoke have got the capability to string a few results together, especially at home. I think Pardew has got that, you know, as you said, that mentality, that experience to keep teams up. You know, I can't really call between the teams that came up, your Huddersfields, Brighton, and Newcastle, and a couple of the others are down at the bottom, like Palace. I know that Palace have got a couple of good results lately, but even Southampton could get sucked down there.
Yeah, and the 3 that came up are the 3 in the bottom 3 of the form table right now. Here's a daft prediction. I'll make many, but I think Stoke will stay up, but not with Mark Hughes as manager.
Yeah, do you think he'll get the Wales job?
I just think you'll get binned.
Right, okay.
No one's conceded any more goals than Stoke in the Premier League this season. 36 goals. That's more than 2 a game. Only West Ham have got a worse goal difference than them. I mean, away from home, they just capitulate. And if West Ham can go to Stoke on Saturday and win, then that just intensifies the pressure on Hughes. And they've got 2 home games coming up, and I think they need to take 4 points at least. The second game is against West Brom. So you look at those 2 games in isolation, that could be Mark Hughes' job. If they win the next 2, then I think he's safe, and I think Stoke will be safe. If they lose the next 2, I don't know where they go. I don't think Mark Hughes is the manager. So I'm going to go with. Do you know what? I'm probably going to go with the 3 that came up to go back down.
Yeah.
I don't see the fight in Newcastle. The off the field. Who's going to win the club? Are they going to get money to spend? Is that deal going to be done with Ashley before the transfer window shuts in January? If it's not, then I don't think that set of players that they've got are good enough to stay in the Premier League. Brighton, again, it's great that they're in the league, but the inexperience, their away form is dreadful. They can't score away from home now. They can Huddersfield. I wouldn't be surprised if the bottom 3 right now in the form table, Huddersfield, Brighton, Newcastle, the 3 teams that came up are the 3 teams that go down. Yeah,
that's right. And to be honest, when Bournemouth signed Jermaine Defoe, I just said they're going to stay up because he gets them goals. And we saw the 2 at the weekend. They're quite unlucky against Man United the other night as well. Showed a lot of fight.
Good team. Again, I love Charlie Daniels. Just getting forward, he's a threat from danger. They're just a good side. And it's funny because we were doing the predictions for the weekend, and Bournemouth, I think on Sunday, have got Liverpool at home, and that's a game for them whereby, you know what, they would, I'm not saying they prefer it at Anfield, but I just prefer Liverpool away from home right now because Bournemouth are going to have a go, whereas Bournemouth got the tactics spot on at Old Trafford, and I love the job that Eddie Howe is doing there as well. They've just got enough. Wilson comes in, gets a hat trick. Okay, he's dipped in form. Defoe as well. Defensively, they're steady. We've got a good goalkeeper now as well, and that was a big thing because you know what Boric is like. On his day, he can be brilliant, and other days he'll chuck him in. So I think to have Begovic now is a big thing for Bournemouth, and I like them. And I don't think they'll win at the weekend against Liverpool, but I might have given them a little bit more chance, even though it sounds weird if they were playing the game away from home.
Yeah, big test of character for Liverpool, though. I mean, it's been a cold winter's afternoon down at the south coast. A lot of gloves will be worn, and probably those John Barnes tights.
Stevie Nicol never wore those tights. I just think with Liverpool, I mean, it's funny, we always talk about the cold Tuesday night at Stoke. I mean, these are guys that have played in all conditions. You go to Russia in the Champions League, and it's minus goodness knows what. This is the type of game that'll not shape Liverpool's season, but they need to go to places like Bournemouth and these teams in kind of mid to lower half of the table, Brighton, Huddersfield, Stoke. They need to go there and win, and I think they will.
Fantastic. Well, mate, on a final note, Claude Puel, he's turned Leicester's fortunes around, and we're seeing a much more pragmatic approach than under Shakespeare. It was another impressive performance in midweek, another impressive appointment from the board.
I don't know what he said to his players, but it wouldn't surprise me if he'd simply said to someone like Mahrez, look, show them a tape of whatever they show them these days, the stuff on the laptop, excuse me for sounding really old. But basically said, look, here's the deal. You go back to playing like that, not only will it help us, but it'll help you because it'll get you a move. And if I'm Mahrez, I'm thinking, that's all right. Whatever nonsense has been in his head last season, forget about it. Just strip it down. Just back to basics. And maybe Puel's done it, maybe he's not. It just seems the Mahrez of kind of old has been on show of late. He's kind of tweaked it as well. He's gone to a 4-2-3-1 instead of a 4-4-2. Which they won the league with. So Mahrez has got a bit more freedom on that right flank. He can come in and Danny Simpson and Fuchs, whether it's him or Chilwell on the left-hand side, they've got a bit more license as well to get forward. And I mean, even if he's done the same with Okazaki, he got a couple of goals in midweek. It's funny, he's not their star, but he's the one who could be probably one of the most important players, Okazaki, because the work rate, the work ethic, and that's what Puel wants from the teams that he's in charge of. He wanted that at Southampton, he wanted that at Nice, even going back to Lyon and Lille. They would, honestly, you would need to wash the jerseys afterwards because there wasn't a bead of sweat that hadn't been soaked. And that's what he wants. It's just back to basics. Do what you're good at. Don't try and overcomplicate things. And I'm pleased that they're back and playing well again and up to 8th.
That's right. And you mentioned Riyad Mahrez. I mean, the freedom he's got out wide now. I think he's got 5 goals and 4 assists under Puel. And it just reminds you of when Puel was coaching Ben Arfa at Nice. You know, he coached him so well. He got in the French team of the year because he listened to Puel. And I actually laughed when Leicester appointed Puel, not because they appointed him, but because of the reaction that they were going to get from it. Because obviously you're going to hear comments, oh, why don't you appoint a British coach? Yada, 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 the same old drivel that you hear. But he's done such a remarkable job. And the likes of Damari Gray, he's brought out a beast, hasn't he?
And that's the thing. I mean, it's just little things, little tweaks, whether it's Gray or whether it's Mahrez or playing Chilwell a little bit further forward as well. I mean, you're talking about certain players just working for certain managers. Look at Gervinho.
Yeah. When
he was at Roma, he was reunited with his former coach. And I mean, he was nothing like the Gervinho of days at Arsenal. I mean, say what you like, footballers are simple creatures, like us all. Sometimes you just need to feel wanted. Sometimes you just need an arm around the shoulder. Sometimes you just need to be told how good you are. It sounds daft. It's not something that you can kind of have you can't imagine working in an office and the CEO comes and puts an arm around your shoulder and says, okay, is everything okay? And you're great at your job. It's not the way it works, but in football it's a bit different. And whether that happens or whether it doesn't happen, sometimes football sounds the weirdest thing to say, but sometimes they just need a little bit of love.
Some footballers need a bit of a hug.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, mate. Thank you ever so much for your time. I really hope that you can come back on the show again, because with our Premier League reviews every week, you know, with other guests, and it'll be great to have you back on. I really appreciate your time, mate. Thank you very much.
All the best, Stel. Thanks.
Fantastic.
And have a good Christmas. Take
Great
care.
stuff. Likewise. Well, look, would you like to give our listeners your Twitter handles?
Yeah, sure. At Donaldson ESPN.
Fantastic.
I'd love to hear from them.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much for your time. And guys, if you're still listening, if you haven't turned off yet, you can follow us on Twitter at Shoot the Defense. And that's it for us this week. From me and from Mark. Take it easy.